Our story is the way that you and I have been taught to think about ourselves. And I know when I say the word story, for some people, there's a sense that maybe this is an academic conversation or, a philosophical conversation that we have over a latte, at a Starbucks somewhere. The world that you and I are living in right now has brought the topic of our story front and center in our lives. And I want you to see why this is right now. Our story matters. The reason it matters is because we live our lives based upon our story. We live our lives based upon the way that we have been taught to think about ourselves by our family, our friends, our community, universities, our religion, our culture, society, the media, and our own experience all contribute to our story. And the way we think about ourselves determines how we live every day of our lives. It determines how we solve our problems. And we all have problems. I mean, sometimes they're little problems of logistics getting the kids to soccer practice or school. Sometimes they're big problems dealing with global issues. But the way we solve our problems is determined by the way we think of ourselves. Our relationships, think about this. Every relationship that you've ever had in your life is based upon the way you've been taught to think about yourself. Every friendship that you've ever had, everyone that you've ever invited into your home, everyone that you've ever invited into your most intimate relationships are based upon your story. The way that we heal our bodies is based upon our story. When you go to a doctor of some kind or a professional that you trust and respect, and that professional says something is happening in your body that doesn't look the way we would expect it to look. When you get that kind of news, the way you respond is based upon the way you've been taught to think about yourself, the potential within you, your capacity to communicate with your body in a healthy way. We heal our bodies. We choose our politics. I mean, there's a whole conversation we could have here. Elections are happening not just in America, all over the world. And the way that we engage in that process is based upon the way we've been taught to think about ourselves. We build our society. Think about this. The policies that we enact, the laws that we pass are all based upon our story. So I wanted to say this early on because I think you can see from this, far from being academic, what could be more important? Our story has come from the back burner of academic conversation. It is front and center for us all because the world just changed. And if we're trying to meet that change through an old story based upon false assumptions of obsolete science and things that aren't true, this is where our suffering comes from. I'm going to give you a reason to change that story. The old story that you and I have been steeped in. I was in school in the 1950s, 1960s, early 1970s. I was taught that we are weak, that we are vulnerable, and that we need something outside of our bodies to feel good and to feel healthy. We are being taught right now that we need technology, that we need computer chips in our bodies or artificial intelligence or wires or drugs to enhance our potential. There is an entire movement based upon this belief. It's called the transhuman movement, where young people are being taught that carbon-based life is flawed, that we are weak and flawed, and that our only hope of survival is to embrace the outer technology and bring it into our bodies. Well, I'm not going to say it's right, wrong, good, or bad. But what I'm going to say is it's a slippery slope. And the more of our biology that we compromise through external technology, the more of ourselves we begin to lose. So before we give ourselves away, I think we need to understand who we are and what our potential really is. And new discoveries are telling us just that. So I'm going to go through just a couple of discoveries, and they're going to lead right into our experience today. Discovery number one, if you're taking notes, I arranged this numerically to help with any notes. I'm going to invite you, for context, I'm going to invite you to think about your body a little bit differently. Rather than thinking of yourself as vulnerable cells, a lot of people think of cells as these little packets of salt water, saline in our bodies, and we always have to defend ourselves from the very environment that gives us life. We're taught to fear the world around us. I'm going to give you a little bit different way to think about this, and it's because of this different way of thinking When we embrace our coherence, you're going to see it's a lot more than the coherence within our bodies. And that's what makes us so exciting. So the average adult, whatever average is, has about 50 trillion or so cells in the human body, give or take. Every one of those cells has an electrical potential. It generates about 0.07 volts of electrical potential, 0.07. And you say, Greg, that's not very much. And I say, you're right. For each cell, it's not very much. But let's do the math. 0.07 volts times 50 trillion cells. Check this out. 3.5 trillion volts of electrical potential you have access to through your body. Now, I know I've seen this in conferences. I make this statement and people take the notes. They write it down, 3.5 trillion volts. What does that mean? Let me just give you a little context here. What does this mean? What you're seeing on the screen right now, this is a 12-volt battery. You've probably seen these in your automobile, your truck, your bus, your van, or these are the kinds of batteries that are now storing energy from the solar systems, the solar grids that we're building and the systems that we're installing into our homes. This is a 12-volt battery. It takes 3 billion of these 12-volt batteries to equal the potential within you. 3 billion 12-volt batteries equals 1 electrical human potential. Think about that. Think about that. Think about what you could do with that kind of energy. Well, what if you could harness that energy through coherence and direct it to healing within your own body or to the longevity enzymes? When I was listening to the poll that we all participated in at the beginning, and Teresa was talking about the age groups, what I kept feeling is, we're all ageless. There are chronological years that mark the time we've walked this earth. But when we begin to let go of that thinking, we simply are. We simply be in this world. And there is a biological implication to that. So what if we could direct all of that 3.5 trillion volts of electrical potential toward the rejuvenation and the regeneration of a body that is made to regenerate, made to rejuvenate, made to heal? But it doesn't stop there. Look at this. Every cell in your body functions as a transistor and a resistor. And if you remember the time we had the old-fashioned radios and televisions and telephones, you could look inside and you could see those transistors and resistors. They used to look like this. Not anymore. If you're in a younger generation, they're all on this chip. That's how far we've come with technology. But every cell in your body functions as a transistor or resistor. It massages the electrical information that's moving through your body. Every cell in your body functions as a capacitor. It stores and releases information at precise times in just the right way. Every cell in your body releases photons of light. You are a light being. I know you've heard this, but science now has confirmed this. We can measure it. We can photograph it. You release photons of light and you absorb photons of light. Well, the light is more than optics. Light is information. And what that means is that you are in constant dialogue with the world around you. You are communicating, constantly communicating with the field that connects all things. That's another conversation that we could have, but I know you all sense, at least intuitively, and many of you know scientifically, there is in fact a field that underlies our existence. It's not out there, we are that field. The field is emerging and collapsing in every atom of our bodies, and the photons of light are a lot of where that information is coming from. Every cell in your body, this is a T cell, and you're all hearing about T cells in the news because of COVID. This is a T cell that you're seeing in the green. Every cell in your body has little receptors on the exterior of the cell membrane. They're antennae. They are emitting and receiving very specific kinds of information that direct other cells. Every cell in your body, the DNA, the very DNA in your body, and the genes that make up that DNA, they are antennae. They are communicating with very specific wavelengths of energy, information, light, electrical, and magnetic fields. So you begin to see, I hope you're getting the idea here, you're much more than this flawed, carbon-based, vulnerable, weak being walking the earth, you are a highly advanced, highly sophisticated, technologically advanced technology, but it's not the technology that we think of outside of our bodies. We are soft technology is actually what it's called. Every cell in your body stores and retrieves information, just like we do on the computer chips. Now, I'm going to say something, and this could open the door to an entire conversation. It's fascinating. Every cell in your body that does all these things and so much more, if you think about it, the technology that we build outside of our bodies mimics what we already do, except we do it better. We do it better. There is an emerging philosophy in some segments of the scientific community, and I'm just going to share this and I'm going to move on quickly. I want you to think about this. The philosophy suggests that consciousness informs itself through its creations. Now think about that. Consciousness informs itself. Consciousness is telling us things that we are asking ourselves to remember about ourselves, and we are doing it through the things we create. So our art, our music, it's entertaining, it's fun, sure. But is it possible that all of our art, all of our music, our sculptures, our paintings, our drawings, the books I write, and the poetry that I write, and the music that people play, is it possible that all of that is us inviting ourselves to remember something about ourselves? And if the answer to that is yes, then could that principle extend to the technology? All of the advanced technology that we're building outside of our bodies. I just have to tell you, I worked in the tech industry. During the Cold War years, the Star Wars Defense Initiative back in the 1980s, I've seen high tech. I've never seen any, I will say I've yet to see anything out there that doesn't mimic what we already do in our bodies, except we do it better. We do it better. The wires, the chips, the chemicals, they mimic our natural neurons, our blood, and our cells. Literally, we are the technology that we're searching for. We're trying to build the stuff out there. We are that technology, except we do it better. Our neural networks, our ability, our abilities that give us our humanness, our sympathy, empathy, our compassion, and our ability to self-regulate our biology. That's where we're going with this. All of that potential that I just shared with you, and so much more, you and I regulate. We regulate this potential, and we do it through the operating systems of thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, breath, focus. Discovery number 2, where a lot of that thought, feeling, emotion, breath, and focus begins to open the door to our highest levels of mastery is through the human heart. Now, intuitively, we've known that. Our indigenous ancestors have known that. And as both Teresa and Claudia stated so eloquently, science is on our side. Science now is beginning to help us to understand what this means. It's just not being shared. Again, it's not being shared in the mainstream because it opens the door to a different story. You and I are living this crossroads of the human story. Who are we? What are our capabilities? What are our potentials? How much do we give away to the machines? Because once we give it away, it begins to atrophy in our bodies. Once we begin to implant chips and wires and chemicals into our body says, well, I don't need to do my job anymore because these things are doing it for me. In one generation, the next generation, pretty soon, those abilities, the body doesn't even do those. The neurons don't connect the same way. The cells don't function the same way. And we lose the very essence of our humanness. How much of ourselves do we want to give away to the technology? We can't answer that until we know who we are. And what I'm going to share with you now goes to the core. It is the essence of what empowers us. It's love. We're talking about love. And the bottom line of what I'm going to say to you, it's the question, do we love ourselves enough to live our lives in a way that empowers our greatest potential? All right, what is that potential? Let's check this out. 1991, a discovery was made that rocked the world of biology because it was the discovery of 40,000, approximately 40,000 specialized cells in the human heart, sensory neurites They were like brain cells, but they're not in the cranial brain. They're in the heart. I wanted to share this with you. I was able to get this just recently. For the first time, we have a 3D map where you can actually see these neurons. And I want to show this to you because I want you to know this is more than a metaphor. This isn't new thought, new age, wishful thinking. This is rock solid science. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. The yellow, little yellow dots that you're seeing there, those are the sensory neurites that we're going to be communicating with through breath and focus and awareness and touch. This is what we're going to be doing. And if you notice what's so interesting, if you'll notice that those sensory neurites, look at where they are. They are around the valves that regulate the flow of the blood. They're around the arteries that regulate the blood coming in and the blood leaving. We communicate with those sensory neurites. That's why we are able to regulate, self-regulate blood pressure when we feel anxiety and how we dissipate that anxiety. So I wanted to show this to you because this is what we're going to be working with. It makes it very real. The neurons in the heart, they learn independently of the neurons in the brain. Every experience, every relationship, every loss, every hurt, every joy, every ecstasy you've ever had, you've experienced it not only in the cranial brain, but in your heart. You know that, and I know that because we feel it. I'll just be very honest. It's very present with me right now. I lost my mom to COVID, right? It was just during the holidays. And in my mind, my man brain felt that it was prepared for that kind of loss. Even knowing that, my heart had to go through, and I'm still going through it. It's a process. It's not an event. I know many of you have lost way more people, have lost way more loved ones during this pandemic than we even like to think about. But if it were not for the techniques I'm going to share with you today, I believe that I would not have been able to embrace my mom's passing in such a healthy way. And this is the reason why. Because it's about more than talking about it and thinking about it and trying to heal a cranial memory. It's a memory in the heart. The neurons in the heart, they have their own neural network. They learn, they remember, they feel, they think, they access wisdom and intelligence independent of the cranial brain. That's what makes our humanness so rare and so precious. And that's one of the reasons we do not want to give it away to the technology, because once it's gone, it's gone. And there's a whole conversation we can have about that. Discovery number 3. I want to say to you that you are the only form of life. I know that you know you're special, but I'm here to tell you, you are rare. You are so precious. You are so special. You are the only form of life that we know of right now on this planet. I'm sure there are some on other forms of life in other worlds, other planets. You're the only form of life that has the ability to do what I'm going to share with you, to harmonize the neurons in your brain and the neurons in your heart. 2 organs, 2 separate organs with neurons, you harmonize them into one system in your body. It's called coherence. Of course, that's what we're talking about today. Heart Brain Coherence. Optimum coherence, when you can create a signal between your heart and your brain at a very low frequency, 0.1 hertz, that's optimum. I just want to show you quickly. I'm an earth scientist first. I'm a degree geologist with a background in geophysics. And this is exciting for me because as a scientist, it just gives me a reason to really embrace what it is that we're going to do together. Why 0.1 hertz? Why not some other hertz? Why not 7.8 hertz? You know, the base frequency of Schumann resonance or something like that. Well, look at this. Look at this. This is a cross-section of this beautiful planet we live on that Ed Mitchell saw from space, that changed his life, and by virtue of that, that changed our world through him implementing his vision as ions. This is a cross-section of Earth and the magnetic fields in a cutaway. And what I want you to see, this is a schematic. This is an actual NASA image, and I'm going to set it into motion. There's our little planet in the very center, that little dark ball. And all of those lines that you're seeing around it, those are the magnetic fields. They're responding to the energy of the sun on the left-hand side of your screen. The plasma, the solar wind, is pushing against those magnetic fields, plucking those waves like strings on a guitar. And when that happens, there is a frequency that's generated. Now, I want to show you something about this frequency. This is a chart, and I don't want it to be really technical, but I do want to honor you with the technical term. This is the magnetic field line resonance frequency. And what I want you to see, where that red arrow is, that first big spike of that frequency, look at what the frequency is. It's not 0, it's not 0.2. Look at what it is. And I know this is a highly intuitive guess that everyone is making right now. It's right in between 0.1. It's 0.1 hertz. And if that sounds familiar, it should, because we just talked about it. The first spike in this magnetic field line resonant frequency, that first strong spike, is exactly the frequency that optimizes our relationship between our heart and our brain. When you optimize that relationship between your heart and your brain, you have access to all the potentials that I just talked to you about, all the capacitance, all the resistance, harmonizing all that electrical potential. It all begins with this coherence. So optimum heart-brain coherence is 0.1 hertz. Now, this is a global pulse event. What's good for you, your personal coherence, is really good for the planet. Because by loving yourself enough to allow this harmony within your body, it brings you into alignment with the fundamental magnetic frequency of the planet you live on. Think about this. You are aligning your body energetically with the power, the fundamental frequency of an entire planet. That's why this is so powerful. That's why so much healing can come from this. This is the highest mastery, the highest level of mastery, self-regulation of our biology, so that we can access this extraordinary potential within us. Now, what the science is showing, and the Global Coherence Initiative has documented and validated and continues to work with through the Global Consciousness Project, the Global Coherence Initiative, Princeton University, for over a quarter of a century. The studies now are confirming that when we create that coherence within us, we influence the coherence around us. It can happen in your family at the dinner table. It can happen in a conference room in a corporate boardroom. It can happen in a community. It can happen in a city. It can happen in a nation, and it does happen for the planet, and we know that. So what I wanted to do before we go into actually creating this pulse today, I wanted to give you a sense and some context of just what a powerful being you are, to shift your story, the new human story, and what it's saying to us about who we are, and our relationship to our own bodies, our extraordinary capacities, the extraordinary potential that lives within us, because every one of us is being challenged right now. Not just because of the pandemic. The pandemic has brought it front and center with our immune response. When you create this kind of coherence within your body, the studies are very clear that we strengthen our immune response on demand. You know how powerful that is. We're the only form of life that can sit down in a moment in time and say, in this moment, I choose to create this coherence between my heart and my brain, this balance between my heart and my brain. And by doing that, what the studies show is we are strengthening our immune system on demand, that we're opening the doors to deep states of intuition on demand, that we awaken our longevity enzymes on demand, that we open deep states of communication, of heart-based communication between ourselves and one another and nature and the world around us. And as Teresa and Claudia were talking about, the trees and the plants, all forms of life. We are opening the door to this deep, deep understanding, and it's happening precisely when we need it so that we can transcend, not just survive, but transcend and thrive the changes that the world has brought to us, and it all begins with coherence. So how do we do this coherence? The Institute of Heart Math has refined the techniques, 3 simple techniques. Now, I'm going to talk you through these. But one of them is breath, and I want to talk to you about breath just a little bit because there's a lot of confusion around this. What I want you to see on your screen, I want you to see that when you inhale right now and you push your tummy out just a little bit, watch how it drops the diaphragm so that you can get a full breath. All right? That dropping of the diaphragm And I'm going to invite you as we exhale to allow our exhale to last a little bit longer than the inhale. In a longer program, I could go into more detail, but what I will say to you is this is a direct communication to your vagus nerve. And that vagus nerve is regulating so much of your response to the world around you. And if you're feeling anxiety, man, who's not feeling a little anxiety in the world these days? Just the breath, the inhale, and then the exhale lasting longer than the inhale, maybe 6 seconds on an inhale and 8 to 10 seconds on an exhale, depending on your lung capacity. That sends a very powerful signal to your body that says, I'm safe. And when you're safe, you open the door to so many of the potentials that we're talking about. So we've just covered a lot of ground. We have done this together. And I hope this helps you. I realize that was a lot of information, and I spoke quickly, intentionally, because I didn't want to get bogged down in any one topic. You can see how many of those topics could be a whole conversation unto themselves, and I acknowledge that. But we're going somewhere with this. This is a new human story. We're not what we've been told. We're more than we've imagined. And as we embrace the deep truth of our potential, we rewrite the possibilities for the world that we now find at our doorstep. New hope, new possibilities in a new year. And it helps us personally to navigate through these deep waters, even when we're not supported by friends and family and colleagues, because they're thinking differently. This knowledge, rock solid science, this isn't Greg's theory, it's not my hypothesis. This is all based on rock solid science. It gives us a reason to awaken this deep potential within us, and we become leaders in our own lives. We become leaders in our personal lives, leaders in our families, leaders in our communities, because we do something first, and it opens the door for others to follow in a way that makes sense for them. And this is how we meet the challenges of the new world in a healthy way. And that's the key. We want to not just survive, but to thrive in a healthy way. So I know we just did a lot of talking. Let's do this together. I love this slide. Let's do it. So I'm going to invite you to put your pencils, papers down. You won't need any notes. Please, if you are listening to this while you're driving, do not do what I'm about to invite you to do. Only do this if you are in a safe place where you have no distractions and all of your focus and attention can be with yourself. So I'm going to put a little sound on to average out any background sounds that may be happening here. Now you have a better sense of what we're doing. Now we just get to do it. The beauty is we don't have to know any of that, but once you see it, you feel differently about yourself. And this is a way of honoring this extraordinary potential within us. So if you haven't done so already, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and allow the world around you to be as it is and shift your focus to the world within. I'm going to do the same thing right here. And the first step I'm going to invite you to do is to allow your awareness to move from your thinking mind to your feeling heart. Our indigenous ancestors gave us the tools to help us to do this by gently touching our heart center in a way that's comfortable for us. I'm going to invite you to do the same. If it feels appropriate to you, I'm going to invite you to gently touch your heart center and allow your awareness to go to the place where you feel that touch. This is the key. Your awareness will always go to the place on your body where you feel that sensation. That's why you touch your heart. So we're shifting our awareness from our thinking mind into our feeling heart. That's the first step. The second step, I'm going to invite you to slow your breathing. Just a little bit slower than you would typically breathe. And as we saw in the slides, I'm going to invite you to allow your exhale to be just slightly longer than the inhale, to reset that vagus nerve in your nervous system. You're telling your body, I am safe. Let's do this together. Let's do a few of these breaths. The first breath, inhale. and release. Inhale. And release. And inhale again. Just feel that shift in your body. And release. One more inhale. And release. And as you release to the best of your ability, continue to breathe just about that pace. And that's the second step. Now, I want you to know that if you feel anxiety during the day from whatever your day is showing you, these two steps alone will help you to reset your biology. If you don't have time to go through all three steps, just focusing in your heart and slowing your breath is a powerful tool of self-regulation. But we're going to take this one step further. We're going to create coherence. The third step, I'm going to invite you to do something, again, that no other form of life can do, and that is to have a feeling because you choose to have the feeling, rather than waiting for the world to give you the reason to have the feeling. Do you know how powerful that is? When you have a feeling, you change the chemistry in your body to match that feeling, and you are choosing to change that chemistry right now. To the best of your ability, if you can feel a positive, life-affirming emotion, and for ease, right now, I'm going to invite you to feel gratitude. And that's an easy one for me. I'm so deeply grateful to be here with you in this way, in this time. I'm grateful for our lives. I'm grateful for the possibilities, the potential of a new world and a new year. I'm grateful for our bodies. To the best of your ability, if you can feel the feeling of gratitude as you breathe and focus, and it all happens in the heart. I'm going to give you just a few seconds to do that, and I'm going to do the same. We inhale, release, and feel the feeling of that gratitude. Say thank you. Thank you for all of the joy and the beauty in my life. This is where the science comes in, because the coherence that you're creating in your body is not limited to the boundary of your flesh. That coherence is feeding the field that nourishes and nurtures all life everywhere. Distance is of no consequence. There's a field that is emerging and collapsing within your being, and you are communicating with that field through breath, focus, and feeling. The world needs this coherence right now. In the presence of coherence, we're more willing to work together, to cooperate, to solve our problems. We're better listeners. Just from what you're doing right now, what a powerful being you are. Pulsing this coherence into the field. Just feel it with each breath. Okay, I'm going to invite you to take one more breath. Inhale with me, and as you release that breath and just feel that pulse feeding the field, and gently begin to open your eyes and become present in the space that you've created for yourself today. I've had people say to me, Greg, it can't be that easy. As a scientist, what I say to them and what I'll share with you is that nature is simple and life is simple until we make it complex. Through language, numbers, symbols, we can do that and make it very complex. But the beauty is we emerged on this earth 200,000 years ago mysteriously. We honestly do not know with certainty what created the simultaneous mutations and the genetic fusions that give us the abilities that we have today. We do know that we haven't changed in those 200,000 years physically. We've evolved in consciousness, but we haven't changed physically. So we arrived here with the ability to interact with the world around us. And that is what the new human story is really all about. Now, I'm just going to leave you with this. I want you, when you think about yourself, you look in the mirror in the morning, I want you to know that you are a highly advanced, technologically sophisticated, soft technology with the ability to self-regulate all of that inner technology through thought, feeling, emotion, belief, breath, focus in the heart. And that when you do that for yourself, when you love yourself enough, and your body will interpret 0.1 hertz, your body interprets that as love. And it's what frees your system to be at its best. By loving yourself, you're loving the world. You're loving the planet that we live on. What beautiful symmetry, how simple, how sacred, how profound.